Hey guys, Jumbo Juice here. Welcome back to the channel. So are you guys excited for Season 10 or what? Come on. Now Seer looks amazing. I cannot wait to play him. His personality already looks great just from the trailers. And we haven't even got any gameplay trailers yet. Okay. Now today I've got a sick video on how to find your perfect ALC settings. So a lot of people have been asking about my settings, what do I use? So I recognize that there's no one size fits all. You know, everyone has different kind of legend mains, different favorite guns, whether you prefer single fire guns like a shotgun with a wingman, or you prefer spray weapons like the R9 or the Vault. So I want to talk about the different playstyles and how you can tweak your ALC settings to find one that fits your playstyle. So I first start by explaining the really basic settings like the button layout, whether to hold, to crouch, or whatnot. So if you guys don't need those basic settings, feel free to skip to the number above, and I also link a description in the description below the timestamp to go straight into the ALC settings. So without further ado, if you guys enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye. Alright, let's start with the button layout. So when I am playing on paddles, my Xbox Elite 2, I like to use button puncher. This is because a lot of times when I'm aiming, sometimes I accidentally click R3. So having it on crouch is a lot better because if I accidentally click R3 during a gunfight, I'm only crouching. Whereas sometimes if you use the default, it's melee, and that can be quite costly during a 1v1 gunfight. So I like button puncher because then this way, when I'm using my paddles to pick up stuff, then it's a lot easier for me to just move around, and this really suits my playstyle. If you do not have paddles, then I recommend you try these customized settings that I have here. So this is what I use for my PS4 controller, which I'm using now because my Xbox Elite 2 is a little bit bugged. It has a little bit of issues. So before I get that fixed, I'm using this PS4 controller. So just a plain PS4 controller, DualShock 4, nothing special, no extra attachments, no paddles, no nothing. So the big one that I have here is having crouch and jump on LT and RT respectively. I don't know why it comes up as Xbox what do you call it? Xbox kind of buttons, but it's basically your L2 and R2 for those that use PS4, and your interact as X or square, and the cycle as triangle. I have the obviously your aim, you want them on one of the back buttons, so it'll either be R1, R2. So the reason why I have crouch on L2 or LT is because I want my aim, I want my attack and my crouch to be on separate sides. So I want this to be on the left side and attack to be on the right side, because when you're crouch spamming during like a close range gunfight, you want that to be on separate hands, because that makes it a little bit more intuitive. So this is the main one really, and having this on LT, RT, this makes you just move around a lot more freely, so instead of having to take your thumbstick off and pressing one of the buttons like A, B, X, or Y. So let me just show you that real quick. There you go. In your crouch spamming, you just want that to be on different buttons. Okay, let's go through the rest. Okay, so stick layout, you should have on default. If you have anything other than default, you are a little bit of a psycho and you should get yourself checked up rather than watch my settings video. So I highly recommend default or go to a mental hospital. Interact reload button, make sure you use tap to use and reload, because the other two have some sort of hold to use or hold to reload. You want to minimize the time that your thumb is spent off the aim thumbstick, your right thumbstick. So you want to keep it on tap to use and reload so that you can just kind of move in and out a lot quicker with the tap. All right, crouch button, keep this on hold if you enjoy b-hopping, because this just makes it a lot easier to b-hop, and I find it crouch spamming in close range gunfights a lot easier to do when using hold as well. Aim button, I like and hold. I think this is a preference thing. I've never really tried toggle. It just doesn't make much sense to me. So I will keep this on hold. Survival slot button. For most of you, you guys should actually keep it on. But if you're like me and a bit of a sadistic show off, then you like to keep it on off so that you can inspect your kunai, you can inspect your weapons mid-fight, mid-game, and kind of show off, and it's utterly, completely pointless, so it's only if you like to flex. Trigger dead zones. This is basically how sensitive your triggers are. I keep it on default. You can keep it on none or moderate if you have really twitchy fingers, then you might want to increase it a little bit, but I suggest you start with default. Menu cursor speed. So this is about how high you can get it to the point where you are comfortable. So I used to have it a lot higher, but the problem was that I was not really able to control it. So sometimes when I want to go for quick armor swaps, I would overshoot the armor when it comes to like just kind of scrolling down quickly. So it just decreased my speed of armor swapping. So I have it around here. It just makes it a lot easier for me to control and get to that armor swap as soon as possible. Okay. So you should start with non-ALCs if you're a new controller player. I started playing controller midway through season 6, I believe. So I think that's the Rampart season. That's the season Rampart came out. Yeah. So I started with 4-4 and I moved up to 5-4. And then ever since then, I kind of just played around ALCs until I figured out something that I liked. So if you are a new player, I suggest you start with 4-4. Because that is the most basic way to start playing controller. Movement dead zone, small, inverted look. Please do not play inverted. Again, if you play inverted, do it as a challenge only or go see a mental hospital. Vibration off. I just find it a lot easier to play with it off. If you enjoy that extra vibration, then I guess you can play it with it on. Okay, so now moving on to why you guys came here. Advanced look controls or ALCs. So obviously you gotta turn it on. So I'm gonna walk through the kind of pros and cons of why you should be moving things up or down, and to kind of just describe what it does so that you can fit it to your playstyle, because every one of us plays differently. You know, some of us are more spray weapons oriented or more single fire oriented, like the Wingman, Eva versus like the Volt, R9. Are you a movement player or are you someone that prefers to kind of sit in one spot, take angles, you know? So I'm going to talk through the different kind of play styles and what you should alter and change up just to suit yourself. Okay, so let's start with the dead zone. Dead zone is basically the place or the amount of movement that you can have within your thumbstick where it doesn't register an input. So the smaller the dead zone, the more control you have over your thumbstick. And this is talking about your aim thumbstick, yeah, your right thumbstick. So the smaller the dead zone, the more control you have. But the trade-off is that the smaller it is, it means it's also a little bit more twitchy. So right now I have it on 7%. So if you have a look right now, I can kind of control wherever I'm going. I can always aim back to the dummy's head whenever because I'm used to it. But if I turn it down, right? Excuse me. If I turn it down, let's say I go to 0, I find it very twitchy. So I have issues. See, I have to micro adjust a lot just to get back to the head. So I find it very difficult if I turn it down too low. So if you enjoy a low dead zone, you got to make sure that you're able to target acquire a lot faster than you. Yeah, I find the target acquisition very hard if I turn my dead zones down too low. I would like to add that this also depends on your controller. So if you have a controller which has been used quite a lot, a little bit of wear and tear, which all controllers inevitably do, you want to keep your dead zones up a little bit because you will have some sort of stick drift. So let's say even if you could control it down to like 2%, sometimes you might notice a little bit of stick drift. So my controller, this PS4 controller hasn't been used that much. So sometimes you might notice like a slow turn like this, even if you aren't touching it. That's because of stick drift. So you might want to increase it until you do not have stick drift or just a tiny bit of stick drift. So for me, I like 7%. It just works for me. And it's the right amount between being able to control it, control and having those micro adjustments, and as well as kind of not being too twitchy. Okay, so your outer threshold. This is the basically the part that is when you put it to max input, where it registers the itself as max input. So this doesn't matter too much, but also depends on your sensitivities a little bit. So I will talk about the bottom parts where you have turning extra pitch, extra yaw. That is directly linked to your outer threshold. So I have it at 4%. I think this one you can keep it to the default at 2, 3, or 4%, and it should be fine. Okay, response curve. This is one of the most important ones. So I think most of the videos, especially the early videos, I had my response curve at 7. So let me just talk through 0 and 10. So 0 is a linear response curve. So if you can look here, if you change your, if you do not play ALCs, right? And, excuse me, if you turn it off, and you play on linear, that's having a 0 response curve. And 10, on the other hand, is a classic response curve, which is the basic one, which is 1. So linear, what it is, it's basically matching raw input to raw output. So whatever you put in, it's whatever's going to come out. Whereas response curve, it will kind of change the magnitude of how much you put in to what comes out. So I find a linear response curve immensely difficult to control. I find it way too twitchy. If you look at my target acquisition, it's very slow. Look, I have to always micro adjust until I find a head. So if you are a someone that is very good with micro adjustments, linear might be the play for you, right? You see, it takes way too long. On the other hand, if you have a classic response curve, it's a lot easier. You have a lot more control. So let me show you guys real quick with this clip what I mean by better recoil control and better control overall with a number 10 classic response curve as opposed to a number 7 or number 0, because I feel like with the 0 or 7 it's quite twitchy at times, and sometimes that kind of messes up my spray control, especially with the R9 or Volt when it comes to long range. So I feel that with the number 10, my R9 sprays have become a lot cleaner, and you'll be able to see that in this clip. Especially right now, you see the Caustic and Loba has come in for the third party. My teammates have gone down, so I kind of need to clutch up here. So you'll be able to see, look, I'm able to have clean sprays on both of them, which kind of enables us to reset the fight a little bit. Now it's a 1v1. All right, okay, where's the last person? You see, that R9, those R9 sprays allow me to buy that kind of time and that luxury, which I normally wouldn't be able to do. So I feel that the number 10 has really kind of altered my gameplay for better sprays. But let's say you feel that neither of you, 10 is a little bit too slow, 0 is a little bit too fast, and you want to find somewhere in between. So I played 7 for a long time. It's played for about, I think, almost 2.5 seasons. So let me show you why real quick as I pull up a clip here, a little 1v3 situation as to why I used a number 7 response curve. So you'll be able to see in this clip, I was able to wall jump around the corner to reposition myself. And I feel that that number 7 response curve really allows for those kind of sharper on-the-fly movements and plays that I would not normally be able to make if I used a number 10 classic response curve. But you will also see the trade-off here, where later on when I hip fire against the Loba, it requires a lot more kind of control and that reduced stability that I get with the number 10. You see right there, I require a lot more micro adjustments. But here I'm able to make on-the-fly sharper turns and then beam that horizon. So these are plays that I would not normally be able to make with number 10, and this is the trade-off that you have to make and to decide which kind of play style you like and which kind of plays you want to run. It allows for a more flicky kind of play style. So if you like flicking, you see, Having that 7 will kind of allow that. There you go. So it depends on your playstyle, what you prefer. If you guys really enjoy the wingman and that's kind of majority of what you run, then I would suggest giving the 7 a little bit of a try and see how that works. But I find, in turn, do remember that there is a trade-off, and your kind of vault and R9 spray recoil control will become a little bit harder as compared to a 10. Alright, let's move on to per optic settings and kind of talk about the different sensitivities here. So this is the preference thing, whether you like to have it on or off. So off basically means you have the same sensitivity across all optics. So I like to have this on because I like to have a slightly higher sensitivity for my higher kind of zoom scopes as opposed to my 1x or 2x. So for me, I use the 1x and 2x quite often, especially the 2x on the R3, 1x on the wingman, etc, etc. So I keep that the same so that it doesn't screw up my muscle memory too much. Whereas for the 3x, I feel that I need that extra sensitivity to track, so I'll have that a little bit higher. So this is all kind of dependent on your play style and kind of your own preference. So put in the time a little bit to kind of test it out and see if you are tracking people fast enough when you're using the 3 or 4x or even the 6x, in which case you might have to bump up the sensitivities a bit as compared to your 1 or 2x. Alright, let's move on to yaw and pitch speed. So these are immensely important. So I have max yaw speed and a slightly lower pitch speed. So what yaw speed is basically your horizontal sensitivity, your pitch is your vertical sensitivity. So I have this at max because this allows me to kind of pan around, look around a lot faster, and this kind of suits my playstyle because I like to kind of be a fast moving player. I don't like to sit in the same spot. So this kind of high sensitivity allows me to move the way I want to be able to do wall jumps, to be able to kind of do sharper turns, to be able to turn 180 onto an enemy behind me, and it's a lot easier. So I have pitch at slightly lower as compared to yaw, simply just because I find a high pitch speed a little bit too difficult to control. So I think 364 is a suitable one for me. Play around a little bit and see if that suits you. I would recommend not to have it too different to your yaw speed because this could screw up your kind of muscle memory when moving up and down. Okay, one of the trade-offs of having high yaw speed is a little bit kind of it's a little bit difficult to control your hip fire. So especially when I first started, let me demonstrate this with the vault. So when I first started and I had max yaw speed, it was really difficult for me to control my hip fire. So that's kind of what it looked like at the start, where I wasn't really able to control it. I was kind of moving it all around. Whereas nowadays, it takes a little bit of time to practice it. There you go. So this is definitely a trade-off. If you have a lower yaw speed, it makes it a lot easier to track enemies when you hip firing. Alrighty, turning extra yaw. Now this is something that I always really want to experiment with, but I've just found it really difficult to get used to. So what turning extra yaw and pitch is basically the extra sensitivity that you get when you reach your outer threshold. So as I said before, this is directly linked to each other. Your extra pitch, extra yaw as compared to your outer threshold. So when you reach that outer threshold, it gives you that max sensitivity. So if I just show that real quick, you turn a lot faster when you hit that outer. Look at how fast I'm turning. But in turn, this makes it really difficult to control when you're trying to do 180s, especially when you hit that. There you go. I'm trying to get at the dummy. Look at how much I overcompensated going for a dummy as compared to what I'll normally be able to do. So this is something that I'll probably experiment with and try a little bit more of in the near future, and I'll let you guys know how that works out. But for the meantime, I have it at 0 because it's just quite difficult to control. And this turning ramp up time and delay is quite similar. It's basically the amount of time it takes to reach that maximum kind of sensitivity when you're in the outer threshold. That's the ramp up time, and ramp up delay is basically how long it takes for the maximum input to kick in. So turning these up will kind of alter the extra yaw and pitch. But if you have this at 0, then these don't matter. Alright, let's talk a little bit about how to find your yaw and pitch sensitivity and what works best for you. So a lot about controller is about finding your target before he does, so that you can lock on and that you can beam him. Alright, so in the real game, when you're coming out of an angle and you don't see the enemy, alright, you didn't know that an enemy was behind there. So when you come in, you want to be able to lock on and just snap onto him as soon as possible. So if your yaw speed is too high, you'll be trying to figure out where the hell he is, and by the time you've locked onto him, he's already put half mag into you. So you're too slow by that. So you want to be able to come out. Alright, I see him. Alright, snap. Alright. Okay, I'm looking around. Alright, he's there. Bam. You want to be able to do that. There you go. Bam. Right, so if yours is too slow, you're going to take your time, you're turning. Okay, finally you see him. That's too slow. By the time your crosshairs are on him, he's already shot half magnitude. It's too late. Alright, okay, I see him. Oh. There. That's what you want to be able to do. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about ADS yaw speed and ADS pitch speed. So this is basically your sensitivity whilst you're aiming down sight, whilst you're holding down your aim like this. That is the ADS yaw and pitch speed that we're talking about here. So let's talk a little bit about the trade-offs of having something high versus low. So you see I'm using 162 versus 130. So what that means is that I have a relatively higher yaw speed and pitch speed as compared to normal. This line kind of represents the recommended. Why is that? Because I feel that this game, there's a lot of movement players like Octane, Bloodhound, and Pathfinder when he's grappling. And these kind of M&K players, they have really high movement speed when they play. So you want to be able to track them appropriately. So I have them slightly higher. If you're finding the kind of recoil control a little bit difficult on your R9, on your Volt, on your Wingman, then perhaps you want to try something a little bit lower. You can start at the recommended lines, and as you get more comfortable, you can turn it up. So if you are having it too low, right, it's hard for you to get from point A to point B, and particularly for the Wingman, where you're tracking a target, that takes way too long. Against an M&K player that's constantly moving. So you want to be able to have something that is a fine balance between something you can control and something that you can use to track people that's far away or fast moving. A good way to practice this is by using the Wingman. I find that. So you want to be able to move from head to head quite comfortably. So you can start off slow like I am doing now and just kind of move in between and see how comfortable you are. Alright, keep yourself ADS. Are you comfortable moving from head to head, or do you constantly have to micro adjust? So if your sensitivity is too high and you're constantly moving left or right, let's say you want to move here but you're overshooting, then perhaps you have to ask yourself, perhaps your sensitivity is too high. Maybe try turning it down a little bit, right? And likewise, to figure out your pitch speed, you want to go from up to down. So let's figure it out, right? Am I overcompensating? Am I going towards the head? Am I overshooting? Then perhaps it's too high. And to get better, you should be able to move in between each of them very fast. And it should be quite easy. So if you're comfortable with your pitch and your speed, it should look like that. Yeah, that's about it. For ADS turning extra yaw, extra pitch, I suggest we keep that to 0, and therefore these two, time and delay, should also be kept to 0, because this will mess up your muscle memory that you built in to work with your aim. So I really suggest that these kept to 0. And if you really want to experiment, then stick with the extra yaw and pitch here without the ADS. And that's about it. That's how you find your perfect ALC settings. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any extra questions, feel free to comment down below. If you found this useful, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. If there's anything else you guys would like to know, feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. Anything else you guys would like to see on our guide or so, different kinds of gameplay, and I'll be sure to try and accommodate. Alright, that's about it. Thank you very much for watching to the end, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!